All right, ladies and gentlemen, I don't have a script written for this one, so we'll see how this goes. So, if you would, just come with me on this journey of FNAF theorizing about one of the most confusing parts in the entire timeline. Elizabeth Afton, weird child, possibly Vanessa, circus baby, Eleanor, goes by many names. What we do know is that she gets swallowed up by Baby, turns into Circus Baby, which is kind of the reason why William starts doing all of his stuff. But this causes problems for the timeline because the Funtime animatronics were built to capture kids, but if Elizabeth's death was what started William capturing kids, then why would the Funtime animatronics already be made? But also, Elizabeth's room is empty in FNAF 4, which would imply that she's dead, or maybe that she just simply isn't there, but people think it's because she's dead and she dies first, and that's why William goes crazy. Maybe not. Others think that it's Crying Child. I'm leaning towards Crying Child now just because I kind of just realized that the timeline doesn't work anymore that way, which is dumb. I don't know why I didn't realize that sooner. Either way, I don't think Elizabeth could have been first just due to that reasoning. Elizabeth, she could have been a robot, died, William rebuilt her. It's weird. There's that one Sire Squawks video where he's like, FNAF's new video makes William stupid. Yes, I agree, but I also kind of agree with Mr. FNAF, John Andrews, there, in that I do think that Crying Child may or may not have been a robot in FNAF 4. I know it sounds dumb, but when Crying Child gets bit, he just gets bit. That's what happens. That's all. And there's no blood or anything, which is weird. And I know, Five Nights at Freddy's isn't that kind of game. There's no blood, there's no gore. It's just not that kind of game. But when he gets spring trapped, there is blood. It pops out. He's lying in a pool of his own blood. So when the Crying Child gets his head smashed in, I'm no doctor, but I'm pretty sure when your head gets caved in, there's a little bit of blood that comes out, at least. So, for him to get chomped and just nothing, it's kind of strange. And then they're obviously not afraid to show it, because in Sister Location, when you get scooped, there's blood on the scoop afterwards. So, I don't know, the logic there, that's the only way it really works, is just looking at it. Maybe it's just that Scott, didn't want there to be blood obscuring the scene, or just that was too far to do that. But I don't know. It just is weird that there's no blood, and it's not like the FNAF 3 thing was after, he just hadn't gotten to that point yet. He was very obviously okay with showing blood in the franchise before that point, so there's no reason why he shouldn't have added it, unless Crying Child was a robot, which would then be the whole remember what you saw and don't get caught. And because, he saw something. He is traumatized for a reason. He saw something bad happen. And it's not, everybody's like, oh, he saw Baby, kill Elizabeth. But no, because Baby says there was nobody in the room. And also, Crying Child, when he explains it, he's not having the reaction of someone who is just saw something bad. He experienced this. He has firsthand account. He is very traumatized about this thing, whatever it was. So maybe something bad happened to him and others, and he A, just got away, or B, he died. William put him back together as a robot, and now he's traumatized. And, William didn't want that to happen again, so then he made the Nightmare, and he made Nightmare Fredbear, and then they, invaded his minds to stop him from going to Freddy's. Maybe, possibly, I don't know. Because that's the thing, right? He's scared of Fredbear, but he's not scared of necessarily Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy. He's just scared of the Fredbear and the animatronic and the suit, but not the plushie. So he's not scared of the character. He's scared of the idea. He's scared of the idea of the animatronic, not the actual character, or else then he would be scared of Psychic Friend Fredbear, which is a weird thing that he's not scared of both or doesn't like both. And then William's got a walkie-talkie in it, but then also his head is in a flower, so how does that make sense? Anyway, Elizabeth, she needs to die at some point before Sister Location. And I would assume, considering the ages and everything, that Elizabeth is roughly Crying Child's age. Michael is probably 16, 13 to 16, and FNAF 4, Crying Child's probably like, I don't know, 9 to 12-ish. I mean, they're pixelated characters, so you can't really tell, but I would just assume that, William wouldn't have a 4-year-old walking around the town to go to Freddy's. I would assume he's at least a little old, and that, Michael in that game is kind of mean, and I feel like little kids aren't that mean, so I feel like he's got to be like in his teen years. So for him to be an adult by the time Sister Location happens, which I'm saying happens in around like 85, 86, probably 86, Michael would be working age by that point. Like he would be an adult, and that lines up, right? And Elizabeth dies, she's like the age that Crying Child is when he dies. So it's not like Crying Child dies, 3 years pass, and then Elizabeth dies. Like, she's very obviously still a kid. So it's got to be around the 83 time. Before, after. I would assume after now. I would say before it got retconned, yeah, she was the first death that caused William to spiral. But now, maybe it's Crying Child. Just because it has to be, because he couldn't have been... Baby killed Elizabeth, but that was her job. So it wouldn't. Why would he build murder clown robots if he didn't actually need to murder yet, right? But I think Elizabeth is what started everything in terms of the remnant. I think that's definitely what started it. So I think when William killed Charlie, he noticed, right, that Charlie was possessing the puppet. Probably saw some things that were like alluding to that, right? And when Crying Child dies, he tries to put him back together. Gregory's a robot. Oh my god. Tries to put him back together, and he's like, "Dang, bro, it's not the same. He's not. He doesn't have that life to him." And then he was trying to figure out, how do I get the soul in this robot child that I made? Obviously it can happen because Charlie's in the puppet. So he killed some kids, tried to do some experimenting, made the fun times, didn't work out very well. Baby kills Elizabeth. Elizabeth goes into Baby, and then that's when William starts to get serious with it, because he has the firsthand knowledge of it. And I feel like that's really what he's doing it for. I feel like he's not searching for the remnant for any kind of personal gain. I mean, yeah, that's what it turns into eventually. Right? Like eternal life, all of that, just trying to live forever, which he succeeds at. But I feel like that's not his original intent. I feel like he's a family man at heart. And when Elizabeth died, right, when she got Circus Baby scooped, whatever you want to call it, he wasn't dumb. He wasn't the Sire Squawks, John Andrews' theory is the dumbest version of William ever. No, I don't think so. I think the reason he didn't make Elizabeth into a robot was because he wanted to be 100% sure that this was a foolproof plan, that he could extract her soul and put it into a robot child with no flaws, nothing bad could happen. So he had to do tests, he had to kill kids, test Remnant to make sure that it was as safe as possible. Because remember, he has the scooper that can take out Remnant and put it back in, which, as far as he knows, the Remnant and the soul are the same thing. So he's like, look, if I can 100% foolproof take out Elizabeth's soul from Circus Baby and then put it into a robot, then he'd do it. But he wasn't going to risk, messing it up and then not having Elizabeth anymore. So he was doing it for, I'm not going to say a good cause. Well, he was doing it for a good cause. He just did bad things to get there. But still, he was doing what he thought would be the best outcome for his children. He remade Crying Child Gregory as a robot, was like, dang, this didn't work. Let's do it better with Elizabeth. Or Crying Child ain't even his child. I mean, in the books, Elizabeth is the only child that he really has. And Crying Child is in one game, and that's it. He's never mentioned again. You think for such a pivotal character, I mean, he doesn't even have a name. Like, you think he would be more important or something. Like, as far as we know, Crying Child could have just been a friend of the family. And, it's just Michael and Elizabeth. They're really only the ones who have actual character development or depth or anything. You're not getting that with Crying Child. He's in one game, he gets killed, done. Gregory may or may not be Crying Child, so Sure, 2 game appearances, but still, I mean, Babies in Sister Location, FNAF World, that doesn't really count, but Help Wanted, Scrap Baby in FNAF 6, and, Ultimate Custom Night. Like, she's in games. Michael is in every game. He might even be in Ultimate Custom Night. I think he's Old Man Consequences, probably, possibly. So, Crying Child, that's the Immortal and the Restless, right? It's not my son. Crying Child may or may not actually be an Afton. I was leaning towards that Michael wasn't Michael Afton, but that would just throw the entire franchise for a loop. So I was like, I pray that is not actually the case, because if it is, I'd be pretty happy, because that means I was right, but I hope I'm not right with that one. So if Crying Child is like Sammy, right, from the books, if he's Sammy from the books, then maybe I can understand that's why, but then why is Michael watching him? Why is Michael killing him and all that nonsense? And it's a lot of stuff that you got to work out, and it's so weird, and the timeline just doesn't work anymore because of the retcons. After the first retcon, it didn't matter because that was Sister Location, but after the second one, it kind of screwed some stuff up when they did FNAF 4, and then they tried to change. Like, it was going good. It was going all right. And then we got the blueprints for the fun times, and we were like, wait, that's pretty crazy, bro. And then we got the scoop blueprints, which, why do we even need that? And, like, if there was one thing that I would want out of Scott, it would not be to remake Security Breach, because I'm okay with the idea of it. I'm not okay with the game. It was garbage, but I've learned to accept the things I cannot change, right? It sucked. It was garbage. Oh well, what are you gonna do, right? It was a terrible thing that happened. It shouldn't have happened. I don't know why the fans were so mad that it wasn't coming out. They should have just let Steel Wool do their thing. Either way, that's not, like, I don't care. If you want to make Security Breach non-canon, that'd be great. But the one thing I really want is for Scott to remake FNAF 4. Like, just remake it. Remake it to actually fit the narrative we have now. And I think that would clear up so many things, because nobody even understood it in the first place when it first came out to actually fit that story. And now it's been retconned twice, and now FNAF 4 really is it screws everything up. The first 3 games, I feel like no matter how much you change the story, they're going to stay the same. They're very outright with all of the evidence. It lines up. There is no, like, debate besides with the FNAF 3 ending, but there's really no debate. It's A, B, C, it's linear. But then you go to FNAF 4 and everything gets screwed up, and especially because FNAF 4 is geared entirely towards Dream Theory, right? Which is the original, that was the original story arc. I'm like 100% that was the original story arc that Scott was going for, Dream Theory. Everything was geared towards that. Even the box, right? I don't know what was in it, but I know what the concept of it, right, was the things that are best forgotten for now. It was probably the kit, right? It was probably the stuff that Scott was saying. It was probably a toy Chica doll in there, and maybe a picture of him or something like that, right? It feels like that's definitely a good, like, kind of guess that it had to do with him and his death and his ties to this franchise and how it relates to Dream Theory. And then Scott, he wrote about the box, about opening it, right? And he was talking about it, and his big thing was, would the community accept it that way, right? It was I thought about opening the box, I thought about showing what was in it, but would the community accept it that way? Would they allow that? And that's because it was Dream Theory. The box, it was explaining Dream Theory, right? Would the community accept it that way? Would they accept that all this work that they had been through, all the ups and the downs and all the evidence and the theorizing all led up to, oh, it was all a dream, right? Like, we're 100% that was the original story. It just had to be. So for you to go off of every game, and especially FNAF 4, that was the nail in the coffin. It was supposed to be, to validate Dream Theory, and then to retcon it and say, no, it's all real, it just screws stuff up. FNAF World was entirely about, I know everybody hated it, but it was entirely about the community, right? It was based off of the experience that the community had trying to solve FNAF 4. Like FNAF World was pretty much, it was saying, it's like dream theory. It was saying, this is dream theory. Oh no, things are escaping into the real world. You know, like the thoughts and his coma and everything, and find the clocks. You need more time and all that. Like it was very obviously, and then like Fredbear, the big presence of glitchy Fredbear. Like it was pointing you in the direction of dream theory. And that's why the FNAF World had the box open, that file, right, that texture, because it was revealing. It didn't need to open the box. FNAF World was revealing the story. It was revealing everything, and it was such a meta game because, right, the whole loop of the game is you're on surface level and then you keep going down through layers, right, and the more layers down you go, yeah, there's some secrets and there's some things that you need to go down layers to progress, but the more you go, the messier it gets, the less you can see, the less clear things are, the more murky it gets. It's Scott's, like, it's the way it represents theorizing. I mean, there's a whole thing, right? The whole point, the old man consequences thing, right? You dig too deep, there's consequences. You go to old man consequences, it crashes your game. They warn you multiple times, don't go too deep. It's not worth it. You're not gonna get it. And that's the entire point that Scott was making, right? By FNAF 4, we were so conditioned and you know, we were just conditioned to like dig into deep things and files and all these things that, you know, at this point were just accustomed for us, but it was too much. We were expecting more and more and more, and we took it too far. And we started looking into things that weren't supposed to be found, right? Little holes and you know, discontinuities that just were mistakes, and we took them literal, and we kept going and going and going until we were like, whoa, we're done. We couldn't figure it out. Meanwhile, Dream Theory was on the surface. It was like maybe 1 layer deep, and we were going 4 layers deep. And that's what FNAF World was. It was showing that you guys went too far. You guys went too many layers down. It was like right here, and you guys took it too far. And FNAF World was saying you guys need to take another look at it. I mean, Scott said FNAF 4 was all the pieces put together. We just could not do it. We took it too literal. We tried too hard, and that's what we came up with. So he was like, dang, you guys didn't get it. And then when you finally did, you were dissatisfied with it. Now I have to make another one. You know, he was like, I have to keep this going to actually make this work. So he made Sister Location, the most important game in the franchise next to FNAF 4, because it's the thing that is the turning point. And then it completely reworks everything that, not the lore-wise, not the actual storyline, but FNAF 4's role in everything changes to, no, this is all actually happening. These nightmare animatronics are actually real. All these are tests. Psychic Friend Fredbear actually has an explanation. Why he's a flower, I don't know. But everything gets an actual explanation, which screws stuff up. And you just can't do that. You can't completely change it and expect everything else to fall in line. It just doesn't work. So it creates the paradox of, if Elizabeth's death is what makes William start killing, then why is her death caused by a robot designed for killing kids? If Crying Child dies first, then why is, you know, Elizabeth's room empty? Why does Crying Child look like the puppet, but also he's Golden Freddy? Why is, you know, Michael, why is he possibly Old Man Consequences? Why is he not knowing about things earlier than he should? Why is his location happen so early? It really shouldn't be, but, you know, it feels like it should happen after FNAF 1, but it's not. It can't be, because he has to know about the souls and what William's doing by FNAF 2, which is in 1987, but he'd be really young. Right after 83, if Sister Location's in 86, the killings are happening in 85, it's all way too close to each other, and there's all these years of downtime when nothing happens. It just doesn't work. The timelines, it's been so screwed up that no matter what you do, it won't work. But a remake of FNAF 4, an actual remake that fits into the lore as we have it now, would be such a help. It would fix a lot of things. Right? Even small changes, like, I don't know, make Elizabeth's room not empty. That would change stuff. Make Crying Child a little more, you know, specific. I mean, now that we've theorized, and I'm assuming we've gotten things right, that would be the time to confirm some stuff, right? What we've gotten right, confirm it in the actual game. Show that the Crying Child, you know, is in a different room. Like, actually preface, this is not the same room that you're playing in. And show that maybe Michael has more of a role in it, since Michael is the character that you play as in FNAF 4, which I made a theory about a long time ago. I wrote a script about it even, and just never uploaded it. And then NotPat came out and said it, and then I was like, dang, bro, I can't upload it now. It's not gonna do anything. I mean, it was when I made a post like a month ago. It was like, I solved FNAF kinda. it was that theory, came out a couple months before MatPat said his thing, but it doesn't matter now. But like it doesn't work either way. It's not going to work either way you look at it, unless you're looking at it from a perspective of looking outside timeline and just looking at it in a story sense of like what makes sense logically in the story arc. But then if you go into actual timeline of events, then it doesn't set up the right motives for William to be killing, because he's killing to bring back Elizabeth, presumably. At least in the books, that's kind of what's happening. And when I say the books, I'm talking about the novels, not Fazbear Frights and that nonsense. So it's hard. William's motive for killing is unclear. We just assume that he kind of kills Charlie and is like, dang, that's pretty crazy. I'm going to do that again. But he's not just killing to kill. Like, he's doing it for a reason, to experiment with Remnant. But why? Why does he experiment with Remnant? What starts that? I think it's Elizabeth's death. I think when he sees that Elizabeth is in Circus Baby, that's when he really starts getting that kind of science-y vibe that he has in the novels, right? Like in the beginning, I feel like he's just he just wants to make a name for himself, honestly. He creates Afton Robotics, I think, not for the sole purpose of killing kids. I think he's jealous of Henry, just like in the novels. They state that he goes from being jealous to worshiping to hating him. Like, they're best friends, I think. That's what you have to assume. And, like, he's the business guy. He's the guy. But Henry's the one who makes the robots. So Henry's getting the credit here, right? William's just the guy that makes the deal. Who's more famous? Someone who invents something really cool, or the guy who sponsored him? Like, it's going to be the inventor. He's going to be the cool one. So everyone's going to be looking at Henry as like the guy. He's the guy. And William's like, I'm half of this. Like, I need more credit here. So he creates Afton Robotics to try and make a name for himself. And he needs to do something different, right? He obviously despised the fact that Henry was copying him. So there's no way William's going to copy Henry. That's why I think that Funtime Foxy is before Mangle. Because William he would not copy Henry. And if Henry made Toy Foxy, he just wouldn't. William's too proud. He has too much pride to do that. There's no way he would. So he would have made Funtime Foxy first, which Henry would have seen. And we know that Henry's okay with kind of plagiarizing, right? You have like Ned Bear and the Mediocre Melodies, as MatPat pointed out, that are pretty much just ripoffs of William's original creations. So it would make sense for Henry to be like, oh, dang, I'm just going to yoink that real quick and turn it into Toy Foxy. So the way I see it, William made the Fun Times before he started killing. And then he started changing. I mean, what is there to say that he couldn't have made these robots and then started adding onto them, started fixing them, started doing multiple versions of them, right? It's kind of strange to think that he was just like, yep, built them all first try. They were all functional. Like, no, he went through stages, probably just made them normally, and then added the whole killing kids thing to it, I don't think the claw, I think the claw and baby is strange. Because it's so odd, right? To think like Funtime Freddy, for example, he's got the hatch where the kid is in. Ballora does something. Funtime Foxy also does something. One of them has the voice and the music that lures kids and all that. But Baby, like, she's got the claw. But is the claw the thing that's killing? Or is it just pulling the kid in? And then the kid's suffocating, or he's getting spring locked like Charlie in Twisted Ones, or I think that's the one where she dies. Like what's exactly killing them? Because maybe Elizabeth just gets captured and then she accidentally dies or something, right? Maybe the claw thing wasn't even actually like meant for capturing kids, right? Like William didn't have to have made the Fun Times just for the sole purpose of killing. That could have been what he added afterwards, after Elizabeth's death, and he was like, now this is what I'm doing. Like, this is just what I'm doing now, and it's a rental service, so he's going to send them out, get kids, bring them back, which is like, what is he doing with the bodies? I don't know, but still, it's weird. And Elizabeth seems like the catalyst, like the end-all, be-all of, like, this is where everything starts and ends and shifts. Like, this is what caused William to go from just normal guy to psychotic killer, but it can't be, because it doesn't make sense for him to already be on the path of killing without having the motive for it, unless he just decided one day he was just going to be a mass murderer, which I don't think he would have. So it's such a weird, just like, it can't work any way you look at it. I've said it like 5 times so far. It just can't work. There's no possible way that you can put everything together for it all to fit together unless something is wrong. Like, if we were wrong about a theory, then yes, I can understand. And that's what I've been preaching for so long, is that we're wrong about something. The only way to look forward is to look back, sadly. And somewhere we got something wrong, and it was big, and Scott didn't say anything. And he was like, dang, you guys are just so wrong now. Do I even course correct you? And I feel like it was in that FNAF 3 area. I feel like we're pretty good on Help Wanted, on AR, on even Security Breach. Sure, I think Security Breach, we're pretty solid on most things and most explanations the way it is given to us, right? That might not be what they actually intended, but what was given to us, we made the best with that. So the sister location, we went wrong before that. And then when Scott, he must have not factored in the actual timeline when he made it. So we need something. We either need a sister location, some kind of assurance on that, or we need a remake of FNAF 4 that's more accurate, that's not dream theory driven, and maybe it can clear stuff up. This rant is like 30 minutes long now, so that's cool. I'm not sure if it's a theory or not, or just a rant, or a hypothesis, or a talk. If you're still here on this journey with me, that's pretty crazy, honestly. Can't believe you listened to all that, or fast-forwarded through all that. But either way, I don't know. Sister location, I don't know. It's weird, and I mean, does it matter? Really, no, it doesn't. I mean, there's a lot of points in the timeline where we're just like, yeah, we don't talk about that. Let's keep moving forward. And I mean, we could do that with sister location, I guess. It's unsatisfying, but that's kind of where I'm at least. I'm at a point where nothing is fitting, nothing is working. I don't want to give up, but you kind of have to focus on other things, or else you'd be stuck on it forever doing nothing. You'd be going too many layers deep and then facing the consequences. So, yeah, that's my theory, if you can call it that. It doesn't have to be right. I don't think it's right. Crying child may or may not be a robot. Who knows? But, I mean, I just did this for fun because, rant is better than writing a script and then doing all of that. The editing for this is going to be insane. Just remember, this is no way fact, or probably not even a reliable source. It's just a theory, right? A game theory.